Hello and welcome back to English Pro Tips. In today's lesson, you are going to be doing a full General IELTS writing test under timed conditions. But don't worry, I'm going to be there to help you along the way. Now, if you're doing the academic IELTS, then just skip task 1 and move directly to task 2. But if you're doing General IELTS, then I suggest you go through this video in its entirety. Now remember, you can write your answers, so your task 1 and task 2 answers, in the comment section below. Okay, so you'll know for General IELTS writing, the first task that you have is to write a letter. Something like this. You recently bought some new furniture for your living room online. You were told that the furniture would arrive within 5 working days, but it has been 2 weeks and it still has not arrived. You phoned the shop but no action was taken. Write a letter to the shop manager. In your letter, explain that the furniture has not arrived. Describe what happened when you phoned the shop. Say what you would like the manager to do. Okay, so this is the task that we're given, and the instructions are always going to be the same. We're going to be told that we need to write at least 150 words, and we do not need to write an address. Remember that. We don't write an address in task 1. We do start our letter with dear and then a name. Okay. So let's focus on how we would analyze this question, and that's the first thing you want to be doing when you start your IELTS writing test. Okay, so when we're analyzing the question, a good idea is to find out what are the key words. So these are the words that are going to help us to understand what we're writing. So let's do this together. You recently bought some new furniture. Okay, so you bought some new furniture for your living room online. Okay, so you bought it online. You didn't go to a physical store to buy this furniture. You were told that the furniture would arrive within 5 working days, but it has been 2 weeks and it still has not arrived. Okay, so you ordered the furniture. You were told it would arrive in 5 days, but 2 weeks later, it still hasn't arrived. You phoned the shop, but no action was taken. Okay, so that's something that you might want to mention in your letter as well. Say, hey, I phoned you guys, but you didn't take any action. I'm still waiting for my furniture. Write a letter to the shop manager. Now, you'll always be told who you're writing the letter to, and this is important to pay attention to, because it helps you decide whether you're going to write a formal, informal, or even a semi-formal letter. In your letter, explain that the furniture has not arrived, describe what happened when you phoned the shop, and say what you would like the manager to do. Okay, so we've underlined the key words that help us to understand our task. Next, when we're analyzing the question, is to question or to look at, are we going to write a formal or informal letter, or even a semi-formal letter? So when we're deciding this, we look at who we're writing the letter to. In this case, we're writing a letter to a shop manager. So we don't personally know the person who we're writing the letter to, in which case we're going to write a formal letter. Okay, next. What do I have to write? Well, we have these 3 bullet points and we need to mention all of these 3 bullet points. The next thing is, what is the purpose of the letter? Okay, so usually you'll find this in the instructions at the beginning or in one of the bullet points, and it will show you why you are writing this letter. In this case, I think it's here. Say what you would like the manager to do. Now, it's very important to identify the purpose because that's something that we're going to write about in our opener, which we'll get to in a second. Now, the last thing you need to think about is, how will you structure your letter? Okay, let's look at a typical structure. We're going to start with our greeting, and our greeting is going to be something like, Dear Sir or Madam, because we don't know the name of the person we're writing the letter to. Next, we're going to have the opener of the letter. And I told you earlier, this is where we write the purpose. So we maybe have 1 or 2 sentences that briefly explain to the manager why we are writing this letter. In this case, it's going to be something like this. I am writing this letter to request a refund for some furniture I bought 2 weeks ago. Okay, we're going to have separate paragraphs for all the 3 bullet points. Then we're going to have a closer, so something like, please reply to confirm the refund at your earliest convenience. And then finally, we're going to end with a sign-off, which is going to be something like, yours faithfully, and then we put in a name at the end. Okay, so that's the structure of our letter. We have the greeting, we have the opener, which has the purpose of our letter, our 3 bullet points, the closer, and then ending with the sign-off. So your letter is going to look something like this. Okay, now don't worry, you're going to have a chance to read this letter because I'm going to put a link to this letter in the description below this video. But I want to show you the letter here so that you get a general understanding of what the layout of your letter should look like. So as you can see, we start with the greeting, then afterwards we have the opener, we have the 3 bullet points are in separate paragraphs, then we have the closer, and we finally end with the sign-off. Okay. Now, before you go on to write your letter, let's look at some useful vocabulary that you can use. Okay, here's one. I'm writing to request a refund. So a nice short sentence that you might want to use in the opener of your letter. I bought this item from your website. Okay, so remember, we bought the furniture online. So we can say, I bought this item from your website. I was informed that it would be arriving within 5 working days. Okay, remember, you thought it was going to arrive in 5 working days, but it's been 2 weeks and it still hasn't arrived. It was supposed to arrive last week. It has been 2 weeks and I am still waiting. So, a useful grammar in this sentence. It has been 2 weeks and I am still waiting. I called your store last week and spoke to one of your customer assistants. So, a customer assistant is someone who, or shop assistant, is someone who works in the shop and helps customers. So you can say, I called the store and I spoke to one of your customer assistants or your shop assistants. I was told that my chair had already been shipped. So it has already been sent out. I find this service to be far below the standards that your store claims in its advertisements. Okay, so you can see the writer is rather angry now. I would like to express my dissatisfaction with the service I have received. I would appreciate a full refund. Please reply to confirm the cancellation and refund at your earliest convenience. So it's a very passive-aggressive sentence. We're saying, please could you just refund the furniture and cancel it at your earliest convenience. Okay, now that we've looked at some useful language and we've looked at the letter, it's time for you to write your answer to this letter. Now remember, in task 1 you've got 20 minutes, so you're going to have 20 minutes now. Good luck. Hi there, welcome back. So now we're going to look at task 2 and we're going to be writing an advantage-disadvantage question. So, due to low-cost airlines, many more people can travel abroad than ever before. Do the advantages that tourists bring to the countries they visit outweigh the disadvantages? Now remember, your instructions are always going to be the same. They're going to say, give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. And the word count is 250 words. So you need to write at least 250 words. And you're probably going to write quite a lot more if you're aiming for band 7, 8 or 9. Okay, first things first, let's analyze the question. So what kind of question is it? Well, we can find that here. It's an advantage-disadvantage question. Next, what are the key words? Okay, so due to low-cost airlines, many more people can travel abroad than ever before. Do the advantages that tourists bring to the countries they visit outweigh the disadvantages? Okay, remember the key words are just words that help you understand the question. Next, how should I structure my essay? Okay, so we're writing an advantage-disadvantage essay. This is the structure that I would recommend. So we're going to use a 70-30 structure, which is when you say, I 70% agree with the advantages and 30% agree, and here are some disadvantages or a disadvantage as well. So 70% advantages, 30% disadvantage. So this is the 70-30 structure. And it will look like this. We're going to have our introduction, body paragraph 1, which outlines one disadvantage, and then body paragraph 2, which shows 2 advantages. And then finally, we end with a conclusion. So in this structure, we're going to have the 70% agreeing with the advantages and 30% agreeing with the disadvantages. Okay, now in our introduction, we're always going to do the same thing. We simply introduce the topic and then we respond to the question. Now in this case, we're going to explain to the reader, so to the examiner, that we think the advantages are greater than disadvantages. But when you're writing your essay, you might think the opposite, in which case you would write 1 advantage in body paragraph 1 and 2 disadvantages in body paragraph 2. Okay, but in this case, we're going to say the advantages are greater than the disadvantages. Now, in body paragraph 1, we're going to start with a topic sentence which outlines the first or the only disadvantage that we're going to mention in our essay. Now, in order to be getting band 7+, we need to make sure that that idea has a development as well. So we're not simply listing our idea, we're also developing it. So for example, with an example. Then we have, or we might want to have a link. And if you're unsure about what a topic sentence, a development, or a link is, then I suggest you go back and you watch my lesson on body paragraphs. Okay, next in body paragraph 2, we're going to have 2 advantages. So we're going to outline the first advantage with a topic sentence. We're going to develop that idea and we might possibly have a link as well. And then we're going to have a topic sentence for the second advantage. We're going to have a development and a link as well. Finally, in the conclusion, we're going to restate our position and we're going to summarize our ideas. So we'll summarize our advantages and our disadvantage as well. Okay, let's brainstorm some ideas that we could write about in this essay. So first of all, what are the disadvantages that tourists bring to the countries they visit? Well, to begin with, first of all, there's environmental damage. When there's lots and lots of tourists visiting an area, there's inevitably going to be some environmental damage as people go into national parks or to historical sites. It could also be the case that public funds, so for example government spending, will go towards promoting tourism and catering towards tourists rather than helping the domestic population. We could also have increased prices for accommodation and local services. If any of you live in a very touristy area, you'll know that because there are so many tourists, often house prices increase dramatically. There could be an increased crime rate as a result of tourism. It's very common in cities such as Barcelona, where there's a lot of tourists, and as a result, there's an ever-growing crime rate as well. And finally, there's likely to be more traffic congestion as a result of more tourism. More tour buses, taxis, and public transport for tourists in general, resulting in more traffic congestion. However, even though we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ideas, we only need one. So we're going to talk about environmental damage. Okay, what about the advantages? Well, tourism creates jobs and business opportunities for local people. Tourists also spend more money than local people, which is good for the economy. Local citizens can also benefit from better infrastructure. So even though infrastructure is built for tourists, it can also benefit the local citizens as well. There's also opportunities to teach tourists about culture and tradition. So again, kind of relating to the idea that there's a lot of job creation when there's more tourism. However, again, in this case, we only need 2 advantages, so we can get rid of 2. Okay. Last thing we're going to do is look at some useful vocabulary for this essay before you go on to write yours. Okay, here's some useful language. Tourism has become an important industry for many countries. Tourism creates jobs and can contribute greatly to a country's economy. Ancient historical areas are being worn down by the thousands of visiting tourists. Tourism is a negative, destructive force. As millions of visitors flood into tourist attractions, locals are employed in droves by restaurants, hotels, and retail services. So again, relating to the idea that more tourists results in more jobs, especially in services such as restaurants, hotel, and retail. The more tourists that come, the more jobs that can be created. Tourists spend a lot of money on travel, accommodation, food, entertainment, and so on. Many countries in the world rely on tourism to boost their economies. So here are some useful phrases that you can use in your essay. Speaking of which, you're going to have 40 minutes to write your essay. Remember, you can write it in the comment section below this lesson. Your time starts now. Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to having a little peek at your essays in the comment section below. Remember, if you need any more help with your IELTS preparation, then visit EnglishProTips.com, where you'll find model answers, model essays, and courses to help you prepare for your IELTS test. Best of luck with your studies, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye then.